Most people carrying a concealed pistol right now have never asked themselves one question. Not about caliber, not about capacity, not about price. The question is this: if tomorrow was the day, would your pistol actually perform? Because in 2026, the CCW market is flooded. Everyone has an opinion. But the data, the real-world test data, tells a very different story. Most of what's on people's hips right now, it's marketing, not performance. Today we're cutting through all of it. One pistol stands above the rest. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it is and why everything else falls short. Number 10. Kimber R7 Mako. The Kimber R7 Mako enters this conversation like a quiet threat that doesn't need attention to prove its value. Quickly. In a world where concealed carry pistols are often judged by marketing noise instead of real-world performance, this one steps in with a different attitude, controlled, precise, and built with a kind of restrained confidence that feels intentional. Kimber, a name long associated with refined 1911 craftsmanship, made a bold shift here into modern striker-fired territory. And the result is a pistol that feels engineered for people who actually understand carry demands. The R7 Mako is compact, but it doesn't feel fragile or overly minimized. Instead, it carries a dense, balanced presence in the hand that inspires control under pressure. Its optics-ready slide and clean trigger break give it an edge in modern defensive scenarios where speed and clarity matter more than tradition. But here's where it becomes interesting. The gun doesn't try to dominate you, it adapts to you. The grip texture is aggressive enough to lock in under stress, yet not so harsh that it punishes everyday carry. Internally, it runs with a mechanical discipline that reflects Kimber's attempt to merge precision machining with defensive practicality. Why it matters in 2026 is simple. Concealed carry is no longer about just having a gun. It's about having a system you can trust. When your world narrows to a split second, the R7 Mako sits in that space between refinement and readiness, where every detail feels like it was designed for one purpose, control, when everything else is chaos. In terms of pricing, it lands in the mid-tier premium category, but its value isn't in being cheap or flashy. It's in being consistently dependable when it matters most, which is exactly what separates carry guns from range toys. Number 9. HK VP9. The HK VP9 doesn't enter the concealed carry conversation like a trend. It enters like a standard that refuses to bend. Heckler Koch built this pistol with a philosophy rooted in one simple idea: if it's not ready for combat-level stress, it doesn't deserve the HK name. That mindset is immediately felt the moment you pick it up. The VP9 has a kind of mechanical confidence that doesn't ask for approval. It simply exists, solid and deliberate, like it was assembled for a world where hesitation gets punished. Unlike many modern carry pistols chasing ultra-lightweight or minimal bulk, the VP9 leans into balance and control, giving the shooter a full, almost duty-grade shooting experience even in a compact defensive role. Its signature ergonomic grip, fully customizable with backstraps and side panels, feels less like a feature and more like a handshake from a machine that understands human hands under stress. The trigger is where the VP9 quietly wins its reputation. A clean, predictable break with a reset that feels almost engineered for repetition under pressure, not casual range enjoyment. And here's where it becomes serious. This is a pistol that doesn't degrade mentally when things get fast. It stays consistent when your body doesn't. In real-world concealed carry use, that matters more than anything else. It may not be the smallest option in this lineup, but it compensates with control, shootability, and an almost unfair level of confidence in rapid defensive strings. Pricing sits in the upper mid-tier, but what you're really paying for is HK's refusal to compromise on mechanical integrity. In 2026, where many pistols are designed around convenience, the VP9 feels like a reminder that true defensive tools are not supposed to be convenient. They're supposed to be uncompromising. Number 8. FN509 Compact Tactical. The FN509 Compact Tactical doesn't try to blend into the concealed carry world. It enters it like a tool built for a mission that doesn't forgive mistakes. Born from FN's military DNA, this pistol carries the weight of real-world testing environments where reliability isn't a selling point, it's a survival requirement. You can feel that philosophy immediately in its structure. It's compact, yes, but not in a delicate or civilian soft way. It feels reinforced, almost overbuilt, like it expects to be dropped, dragged, and still brought back into action without hesitation. The slide cuts, suppressor, height sights, and optics-ready platform all hint at something deeper than everyday concealed carry. They hint at adaptability under pressure, the ability to evolve with the fight instead of being limited by it. When you rack the slide, there's a mechanical resistance that feels intentional, like the pistol is reminding you it was not designed for comfort, but for certainty. The trigger is crisp, not overly light, but controlled enough to maintain discipline in rapid-fire sequences. But here's where the 509 Compact Tactical separates itself. Its versatility doesn't feel like a marketing claim. It feels like engineering honesty. Whether you're running it as a concealed defensive pistol or pushing it into a more tactical setup with optics and suppressor-ready configuration, it doesn't lose identity. It stays grounded, consistent, and brutally functional. Why it matters in 2026 is simple. Concealed carry is no longer just about concealment. It's about preparedness for unpredictable escalation. The FN 509 Compact Tactical sits in that uncomfortable middle ground between everyday carry and full defensive readiness, and it owns that space without apology. It's not the smallest, not the lightest, and not the flashiest, but it is built like it expects the worst-case scenario and refuses to fail under it. Pricing reflects that duty-first philosophy, sitting firmly in the premium defensive category where you're not paying for aesthetics, you're paying for confidence when everything goes silent and fast. Number 7. CZ-P10C. The CZ-P10C doesn't walk into the concealed carry world with noise. It arrives with restraint, like a tool that was never designed to impress people at first glance, but to outlast their expectations. CZ built this pistol with a European engineering mindset. Simple where it should be simple, aggressive where it matters, and brutally honest in execution. At first touch, the P10C feels like a striker-fired pistol that has been stripped of unnecessary emotion and rebuilt purely around function. The grip angle, the undercut trigger guard, the balance in the hand, everything feels calculated for one purpose: making the shooter faster without forcing them to think about it. There's a certain cold efficiency in how it handles recoil. It doesn't dance or wander after each shot. It snaps back into line like it understands. Repetition is everything in a defensive encounter. The trigger is one of its quiet victories. Clean break, short reset, no drama. Not overly fancy, not trying to feel premium. Just mechanically correct in a way that builds trust over time rather than excitement in the first magazine. But here's where the CZ-P10C becomes dangerous in the concealed carry conversation. It doesn't pretend to be anything it's not. It's not trying to be ultra-light like micro-compacts, and it's not trying to feel like a duty-sized flagship. It sits in that perfect middle zone where control, capacity, and concealability meet without compromise. That balance is what makes it quietly dominant. You don't notice it until you shoot it under pressure, and then you realize it never lost control in the first place. Why it matters in 2026 is because concealed carry is shifting away from novelty-sized pistols toward practical shootability. People are realizing that a gun you can shoot poorly under stress is more dangerous than a slightly larger gun you can actually control. The P10C represents that philosophy perfectly. Pricing sits aggressively in the value to mid segment, which makes it even more disruptive. It performs like a premium pistol but refuses to price itself like one. Number 6. Shadow Systems CR920XL. The Shadow Systems CR920XL doesn't feel like a traditional concealed carry pistol. It feels like a carefully refined correction to everything people got wrong about micro-compacts. Shadow Systems didn't design this gun to simply compete. They designed it to challenge the idea that smaller automatically means compromised. From the moment you pick it up, there's an immediate sense that this isn't a mass-market clone or a rushed entry-level option. It feels tuned, intentional. Like every edge, every cut, every internal decision was made after watching thousands of real defensive encounters and asking one question: where do most compact pistols fail when it actually matters? The extended XL frame changes everything about how it behaves under recoil. Instead of snapping unpredictably like many subcompact pistols, it tracks in a flatter, more controlled rhythm that feels almost unfair for its size class. The grip texture is aggressive in a purposeful way, meant to lock your hand in place when adrenaline is doing everything it can to break fine motor control. The trigger is another standout point, not because it's flashy, but because it feels disciplined. Clean break, fast reset, no unnecessary movement, just a mechanical certainty that keeps the shooter connected to every shot. But here's where the CR920XL earns its reputation. It doesn't just aim to be concealable, it aims to be usable under stress. That distinction is what separates serious defensive pistols from fashionable carry options. Shadow Systems also integrates optics readiness and improved ergonomics that feel borrowed from duty-grade platforms, shrinking them without destroying their identity. It's a compact pistol that refuses to behave like a compromise. Why it matters in 2026 is because concealed carry has entered a phase where people want micro-size but full control, and that's usually where reality breaks expectations. The CR920XL sits in that uncomfortable but powerful middle ground, where concealment still works, but performance doesn't collapse under pressure. It's not the cheapest option in this lineup, but it earns its price through consistency, shootability, and the feeling that it was built for people who actually expect to use it, not just carry it. Number 5. Walther PPQ M2. The Walther PPQ M2 doesn't belong to the modern concealed carry conversation because it's new. It belongs because it refuses to disappear. In a market obsessed with constant reinvention, this pistol stands like a reminder that some designs were already nearly perfect before the industry started overthinking everything. Walther built the PPQ M2 with a philosophy that feels almost surgical: eliminate hesitation, maximize instinct, and make the trigger feel like an extension of human intent. The moment you grip it, there's an immediate sense of control. Like the pistol naturally aligns itself with your hand, rather than forcing you to adapt to it. The defining character of the PPQ M2 has always been its trigger, and it still holds its ground even in today's crowded striker-fired world. It's short, crisp, and incredibly consistent, almost like a mechanical promise that every press will feel the same under pressure as it does at the range. That consistency is what made it legendary in defensive shooting circles. The grip ergonomics are equally important. Walther didn't chase aggressive gimmicks. They shaped the frame to feel natural under recoil, giving the shooter a stable platform without unnecessary complexity. But here's where the PPQ M2 becomes interesting. In 2026, it represents a different era of concealed carry thinking. It's not the lightest, not the newest, and not the most modular, but it is brutally predictable in a world where unpredictability under stress is the real enemy. When things escalate, you don't want surprises from your equipment, and this pistol almost eliminates them. It behaves the same whether you're calm or under pressure, and that psychological consistency is its real strength. Why it still matters today is simple. While newer micro-compacts chase minimal size and maximum capacity, the PPQ M2 represents control first, compromise second. It may sit slightly larger than modern deep concealment pistols, but it rewards the shooter with stability that smaller guns often sacrifice. In terms of value, it often appears at a more accessible price point today, which makes it something of a hidden advantage for those who prioritize shootability over trends. It's not trying to be the future, it's proving that the past still works when everything goes wrong. Number 4. Glock 26 Gen 5. The Glock 26 Gen 5 doesn't try to impress anyone, and that's exactly why it survives every generation of concealed carry debate. This is not a pistol built for admiration, it's built for inevitability. Glock designed it as a backup to a backup platform that somehow evolved into one of the most trusted deep concealment tools on the planet. In the hand, it feels compact but dense, like a machine that was intentionally stripped down only to the point where nothing essential was lost. There's a quiet confidence in its shape. No unnecessary curves, no decorative engineering, just pure function. The Gen 5 improvements refine what already worked. A smoother trigger system, upgraded barrel design, and internal enhancements that improve consistency without changing the identity. And that identity is simple: point, press, repeat, survive. The Glock 26 doesn't rely on personality. It relies on repetition. Under stress, that matters more than any feature list. It doesn't ask the shooter to adapt to it. It demands very little attention at all, which is why so many professionals trust it as a last-line carry option. But here's where it becomes interesting. In real concealed carry use, it hides in places larger pistols simply cannot go, yet still accepts extended magazines from its bigger Glock siblings. That flexibility creates a strange dual identity: deep concealment when needed, and surprising capacity when expanded. It's not flashy, but it is brutally practical in the way only Glock seems to consistently deliver. The recoil is snappy, there's no hiding that, but it's predictable, and predictability is everything in microframe defensive shooting. Once you understand its rhythm, it becomes almost mechanical in its return to target. That's why it has survived decades of criticism and competition. It doesn't try to win arguments, it just keeps working. Why it matters in 2026 is because concealed carry is increasingly split between ultra-compact lifestyle guns and full-featured compact pistols. The Glock 26 sits in the exact middle of that tension. It is not the most comfortable, not the most refined, but it is one of the most dependable systems ever made for close-range defensive use. Pricing remains moderate, but its real value is not financial. It's the trust built over decades of real-world carry, where failure simply isn't an option. Number 3. Springfield Echelon 4 0C Compact. The Springfield Echelon 4 0C Compact doesn't feel like an incremental update. It feels like a calculated response to everything the concealed carry world has been demanding, but rarely receiving in a single platform. Springfield didn't approach this pistol as a revision. They approached it like a reset button. From the outside, it carries a clean, modern silhouette, but underneath that simplicity is a system built around adaptability, speed, and real defensive efficiency. The first impression is almost deceptive. It looks restrained. But once it cycles, you realize it was never designed to be gentle. It was designed to perform under pressure. At the heart of the Echelon's identity is its modular optics system and internal engineering approach, which feels less like traditional firearm design and more like purpose-built architecture. The fire control system is self-contained, allowing flexibility in configuration that doesn't compromise structural integrity. That matters in concealed carry because it means the pistol can evolve with the shooter instead of locking them into a single setup. The grip texture and frame geometry are tuned for aggressive control without punishing daily carry comfort, striking a balance that many compact pistols struggle to maintain. But here's where it gets interesting. The Echelon 4 0C Compact doesn't just shoot well, it feels like it was built for decision speed. The trigger press is consistent and clean, but what stands out more is how naturally the pistol returns to sight alignment. It reduces wasted motion. That might sound subtle, but in defensive use, fractions of a second define outcomes, not comfort features. Why it matters in 2026 is because concealed carry is no longer just about reliability. It's about integration. Optics, modularity, adaptability, and real-world control are becoming standard expectations, not luxury features. The Echelon 4 0C Compact sits directly in that shift, offering a platform that doesn't force compromise between modern capability and everyday concealability. It's not trying to be iconic, it's trying to be current, and that alone makes it extremely relevant in today's defensive landscape. Pricing sits in the competitive mid to upper range, but the value comes from how complete the system feels right out of the box. Number 2. Smith & Wesson M and P9 Shield Plus. The Smith & Wesson M and P9 Shield Plus doesn't rely on drama, innovation headlines, or flashy redesigns. It survives on something far more dangerous in the concealed carry world: trust earned over time. This is a pistol that didn't arrive to redefine the category. It arrived to dominate it quietly, one carry holster at a time. From the first grip, you can feel its purpose. Slim, controlled, and deliberately shaped for deep concealment, it doesn't fight your lifestyle, it integrates into it. Smith & Wesson took the original Shield concept and refined it into something that feels less like a tool and more like a daily responsibility, carried without hesitation. The Shield Plus brings one of its most important upgrades: in capacity without sacrificing concealability. And that shift alone changed how many people view micro-compacts. It no longer feels like you are choosing between size and firepower. You're getting both in a controlled compromise that actually works in real-world carry. The grip texture is subtle but effective, designed to maintain purchase without tearing into the hand during long carry sessions. The trigger is where the refinement becomes noticeable: cleaner, lighter, and more consistent than earlier generations, giving it a sense of modern maturity without losing its defensive character. But here's the deeper truth about the Shield. Plus, it doesn't demand skill, but it rewards it. Under stress, it remains predictable, stable, and easy to bring back on target, which is exactly what matters when fine motor control starts to break down. It is not built to impress at the range. It is built to function when awareness is already compromised. Why it matters in 2026 is because concealed carry is shifting heavily toward everyday practicality. People want something they can actually live with, not just train with. The Shield Plus sits perfectly in that reality. It is thin enough to disappear under clothing, yet capable enough to handle real defensive scenarios without feeling underpowered. It doesn't try to be a tactical platform or a duty crossover. It stays in its lane and dominates it. In terms of pricing, it remains one of the most accessible, serious defensive pistols on the market, which makes it even more relevant. Because in concealed carry, the best gun is not the most expensive one, it's the one you actually carry every single day without excuse. Number 1. To ever one. Sig Sauer P320 MOD. The Sig Sauer P320 MOD doesn't enter the concealed carry discussion. Quietly, it arrives with the weight of a platform that has already reshaped how modern pistols are built. This isn't just another compact handgun. It's a modular system wrapped in a defensive philosophy that prioritizes adaptability over limitation. Sig took the original P320 concept and pushed it further into real-world usability, creating a carry-ready configuration that feels less like a fixed weapon and more like a configurable defensive tool built for changing lives and changing environments. From the moment you pick it up, the P320 MOD feels slightly different from traditional striker-fired pistols. There's a sense of structural seriousness in its frame, like it was engineered for duty use first and then refined downward for concealment rather than the other way around. That origin story matters because it explains why the pistol feels so stable under recoil. It doesn't bounce or feel overly light. It tracks with controlled authority, returning to target in a way that feels predictable, even under rapid fire. The modular fire control unit is where this platform becomes something more than a typical concealed carry pistol. It allows the user to change grip modules, sizes, and configurations without changing the core system, which means the same firearm can evolve from deep concealment to a more duty-oriented setup depending on need. That flexibility is not just a convenience. It's a strategic advantage in a world where defensive requirements are not static. But here's where it becomes important. In 2026, concealed carry is no longer about owning one perfect gun. It's about owning a system that adapts to multiple realities. The P320 MOD represents that shift completely. It is equally comfortable in a concealed holster, a vehicle setup, or a more duty-style configuration, which gives it a rare versatility most pistols simply cannot match without compromise. The trigger system is consistent and smooth, designed for repeatable control rather than theatrical performance. Recoil management feels balanced, not overly aggressive, but structured enough to maintain discipline in fast defensive strings. Pricing sits in the mid to premium range, but what you're paying for is not just a pistol, it's an ecosystem. In a concealed carry landscape that is rapidly evolving, the Sig P320 MOD stands as a reminder that the future belongs to systems, not just standalone handguns. Outro. In concealed carry, perfection doesn't exist, only preparation does. We saw pistols built for control, concealment, and real-world survival, not range fantasies. The wrong choice costs seconds, and seconds decide everything. So now the question is simple. If your life depended on it today, which one would you trust when nothing else matters?